Welcome to the Coach's Corner. Coach Clarence is an entrepreneur, financial expert, and passionate about helping people build and market their business. He has a creative flair for thinking outside the box and is always looking for the positive side of life. Now, here's Coach Clarence.
Everybody, welcome to Fit Over 40 and another episode of Coach's Corner. And my guest today is Traci Herbert. She is a fascinating woman with a pretty serious biography. And so I'm going to go over some of the highlights, and then we're going to ask her some questions and let her tell us all about herself. She is a leading authority on health and wellness. She is a professional speaker, a best-selling author. We're going to get into some of that. She has a podcast, which we'll talk about, and she is a diabetes advocate. All right. So, Traci, welcome. Thanks for coming on. I always ask people, tell us where you started from that got you to here.
It's so great. It's so great to be here today. Thanks for having me.
Sure.
It started at 17 years old. Now, typically I say I'm 17 years old because I like to get the audience looking up at me, but a lot of people might be hearing just through audio and not video. I'm not really 17, obviously.
Well, we'll do both, so they can always reference the video, and I'll put your information in there.
But anyway, at 17 years old, I was lying in a hospital bed, IV stuck in my veins. I was in ICU fighting for my life. Before this moment, I was one of the healthiest people you could ever meet, an athlete, loved life, had the whole life looking forward to. And the doctor walks in, he puts his hands on his hips and he says, "Young lady, you've got juvenile diabetes. You're going to die in 20 years. You're going to die with horrible complications. You're going to go blind. You will have your legs amputated. You're never going to be able to have children." And as he turned around, he said, "Oh, and you have to learn to give yourself shots several times a day for the rest of your life because there's not a cure." And he walked out.
How about some positivity, Doc?
Yeah. But, that was actually the best thing that ever happened to me. But at 17, I'm sitting there going, first of all, what did he just say? My parents and I were speechless. We were sitting there going, what is going on? And I kept hearing the whole 2.5 weeks I was in the hospital, juvenile diabetes, which is now called type 1 diabetes, which is totally different than type 2 diabetes, which is very prevalent in the world today. And also, pre-diabetes and things like that. So type 1 diabetes, which is what I have, you learn to give yourself shots of insulin every day because without it, I would die. And so I'm just every day I'm in the hospital going to all these special classes, trying to get out of ICU and then actually out of ICU and in my hospital room. And everybody kept saying the same thing. You're going to be dead in 20 years. You're going to die with horrible complications. You're going to go blind. You're going to have your legs amputated. You'll never have kids, and everything they kept saying. And I finally had enough. And I said, excuse me, how can I live longer and healthier? And they're like, oh, you can't. There's no way. They even had the audacity to tell my parents, don't waste your money sending her to college. At least they didn't listen to that. My parents were just like I was. We're like, no. So I started researching everything I could about how to live healthy with diabetes, but also just how can I live a healthier life? And I started getting a little bit more excited because I thought, okay, Traci, there's hope. As long as we have hope, we have something to look forward to. Because when that doctor walked out of the hospital room, I had no hope. And I was at the concession stand because my friends and I went to a movie, my first movie out as living with diabetes, and all my friends were getting popcorn, candy, soft drinks, you name it, and they were getting it. And I said to the concession stand clerk, can I have a cup? Because I just wanted to get a cup of water out of the drinking fountain. And this was way before diet soft drinks, way before a bottle of water. And the concession stand clerk said, no. And I ran out of the movie theater crying, sobbing, feeling so sorry for myself. And I got home and I motioned to my parents, can't talk about it, as I ran to my bedroom, and I am sobbing and sobbing. And at that moment, my life changed. I said, Traci, you have two choices. You can be better or you can be bitter. What are you going to choose? And at that moment, I said, I'm going to be better. And I've been practicing that now 47 years later, every day, doing something to make myself better and to have the right kind of positive outlook. Because when we start feeling sorry for ourselves and start thinking down in the dumps, you're not going to be a successful, happy person. And to me, success is more about having the energy that I have now in my 60s than I even had in my 30s. And so it all boils down to my 3M formula, which I know we're probably going to want to get into that a little bit further down, but I will let you say a few words here and there whenever you're interested. Just interrupt me because I could go on forever and ever.
No, you're doing great. You're doing great. So my first question is, let's talk about how you dealt with the diabetes at a young age.
Well, at first I went back to my mindset, which when my doctor was getting ready to retire, he said, Traci, you've got to get this message out. You've got to tell other people, because he would have me talk to his patients that were just newly diagnosed with type 1 or type 2 diabetes. And I started sharing what I'd been learning, because by this time I'd been researching for so long. And it all boils down to the number one of my 3M formula is having the right mindset. Because when we have the right mindset, we can start doing other things to make ourselves be better and not bitter. We all have two choices in life. And so I said, okay, what can I do today to start changing my mindset? And so what I started doing, even back in the mid 70s, I started listening to some positive 8 tracks back then. I am dating myself. I'd start listening to people. I would read books that were inspirational, motivational. I would listen on TV. When somebody was going to be on PBS, I would think, oh, okay, that makes total sense. So I started telling myself, okay, Traci, you have to have the right mindset, because without the right mindset, number one, life's not worth living, but also you can do much more than you ever thought possible. And so with my mindset, I started thinking about, okay, what else has changed my life? And I thought eating, which my second M is mouth. So I started learning to eat to live, don't live to eat, because I was eating for years, decades. I was eating the typical Western diabetes healthy diet, which would spike my blood sugar super, super high. And then I would go super low. Now, with or without diabetes, you eat certain things for breakfast. Hey, let's talk about the donuts or something like that. Everybody's blood sugar spikes, and then everybody's blood sugar drops. But when your blood sugar drops, again, with or without diabetes, that's when you become so lethargic and you don't want to do anything. Correct. For example, you go out for Italian food or something for lunch with all your friends. You go back to your office and you're like, oh, I need a Coke, or I need something to drink, or I need some candy, because you're so tired. And that's because your blood sugar had dropped. It had spiked with the, and then it dropped. And so I thought, okay, this is coming up when I started really changing my diet and started having the right mindset, thinking, okay, I can do this because I'm going to eat to live. I'm not going to live to eat. And then my third M is move. We've got to get off our chairs and move more. Yes. Because when we don't move and we sit and binge watch TV, which we all do, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but go for a walk before you watch TV, or do what I do. If I haven't gotten my exercise for the day, I will literally run while I'm watching TV, or I will lift weights. I will do something while I'm watching TV, because the 3M formula all works synergistically together. So you're having a bad day and you start thinking, oh, my day's horrible. Then you're more likely to grab some chips or cookies or something unhealthy. Then you're going to be like, I can't go work out. I'm too tired. But when you have the right mindset and you choose foods that help you and doesn't hurt you, then you're much more likely to go out and exercise or walk in place or run. I'm not talking about joining a gym and run a marathon or anything like that. I'm just saying do simple things.
I got a question for you.
Yes.
You said not doing a marathon. You got on a bike and did, read this right, 3,527 miles. What in the world were you thinking, and where did you go?
I started
a long time on a bike.
It is. And for a grandmother too, and somebody with diabetes. So, I hit the trifecta. I rode my bicycle across the country, and I, have diabetes, and I'm a grandma. Not very many people can do that. So what I did was I started at the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, and I ended at the Brooklyn Bridge in New York City. And then I finished on the Dr. Oz show, because my story was so unique, because people were like, oh, you must have, cured yourself of diabetes. No, I still have diabetes. I still take insulin, but I have so much more energy. So it goes back to that. And I would love to share the story because it's so transformational for so
Sure.
many people. But
Let's
I was
go.
in Sacramento. Of course, I started in San Francisco. So this was really early on in my ride. And I'm sitting there waiting for the light to turn green. And the lady said, I wish I could ride my bike across the city. And I happened to look over there and I said, well, I'm riding my bicycle to New York City. And I had that gut feeling, get off your bike, Traci, and go talk to her. So I got off my bicycle and she was a sweet, sweet lady, probably in her mid 30s. And she was telling me, I can't walk home. I live about 4 houses down. She lived around the block. So it's probably 4 or 5 houses. And she said, I have to wait for my brother to come pick me up. Well, besides her beautiful smile, she was extremely overweight. And you could just see that she was just so dejected. I mean, it was horrific. And so the health coach in me started coming out, started saying, okay, what can you do, Traci? How can you help this sweet lady? So I said, could you walk next door? And she said, I can't. Everything I said, she said, I can't. And I said, could you walk into your driveway? And just for a split second, you could see everything changing on her face. And she said, I think I can. I said, yes. I said, walk into your driveway, rest if you need to, and walk back. Do the same thing the next day. Every day, go, maybe if you can, go a little further, rest, and then go every day. And I said, when you get stronger, walk into your driveway, then you can go next door. And her very best friend lived 3 houses down, and she hadn't been able to go over there for a long time. So I said, when you get stronger, don't overdo it. When you get stronger, go to your friend's house, rest, and then walk back. Go to the end of your street. I mean, so I'm giving her all these things I knew she could accomplish. By the time I was riding my bicycle into New York City, she said, I'm so excited. I just have to tell you, I just signed up for my first 5K walk. That's 3.1 miles, y'all.
Yeah.
This was a lady who couldn't even walk around half of a block to go home. And she said, what even shocked me even more, Traci, is I have more energy and the weight's coming off of me. She said, I haven't even changed my diet that I know of, but I'm just getting up and I'm moving, and I'm doing it several times a day now. So she went from what we would all call a couch potato to signed up for her first 5K walk. And so little simple things like that make a huge difference.
Absolutely.
So back to my bicycle ride, if I would have left the Golden Gate Bridge saying, I've got 3,527 miles to go on my bicycle, I would have been overwhelmed. But every day I broke it down. I said, hey, I'm going for a bike ride, just like we did as kids. And I think people try to make it when we get a certain age, people try to make it like, ooh, I need to be more serious about it. Oh, I went for a bike ride just like I did when I was a kid every day, except this time I went 3,527 miles.
That's fantastic. You wrote a couple of books. So let's talk about the 3 books. Let's start off with the Longevity Code. Tell me about that.
The Longevity Code is my newest book, and it's based on research of now almost 47 years. It's probably about 45 years I've technically been researching. But what it does is it talks about simple strategies that you can do to live a longer, healthier, and happier life. And it's not like take a pill and you're going to be fixed. No, it's just simple strategies, just like my friend that I met in Sacramento, just small little things. It talks about the importance of sleep. It talks about the importance of sunshine. It talks about working out at the right time of day. It talks about my 3M formula in much more detail, obviously, but it really talks about how you can take control of your health no matter what. And what really inspired me to write this book, like I said, this was my last book, but my husband and I are we like to do athletic stuff. We like to do crazy things, but we hiked to the bottom of the Grand Canyon, a backpack with all of our clothes and everything, our tents and it's not just an easy little hike in the park. We go down all the way to the river. We spend a couple of nights and we hike back out.
How long does it take you to get to the bottom?
Well, it took this last time we did it 4 months ago now. It took us a little over 10 hours.
Okay.
But we're also older now. So when we did it in our 50s, it probably took us about 7 or 8 hours. And, in our 40s, but it's not a competition. When you get to be in your 60s, you're like, hey, the end result is at the bottom, or the end result's at the top when I come back up. And so that's what it's all about. It's not racing against young people anymore. I race against myself, but make sure I can reach my goals, just like I did on my bike ride. And so we met a couple at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, and he was 86 and she was 84. And
Wow.
they hiked this twice a year. And y'all, this was not an easy feat for my husband and I in our 60s. And we could only imagine, but they do it and they've done it for decades. And it started making me think they don't have the stinking thinking about, oh, I'm 86 or I'm 84 and I can't do anything. No, what are we going to do today? Where are we going to go hike? What are we going to eat? You know, those same kind of things we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Because my husband and I left a group of friends, love them dearly, but we were sitting around the table one day, all just visiting, and they're like, oh, my neck hurts, my legs hurt, my hips hurt. You know, I can't do anything. And we got in the car and we're like, man, we love them dearly, but we can't ever let that stinking thinking get in our minds. So then we start talking about our friends in their mid 60s versus our friends in their 80s, and what our friends in the 80s did versus what these people do. So we can all start feeling negative and start saying, oh, I'm getting older. So longevity codes is how not to sit on the rocking chair when you're 60, 70, 80, 90 years old. It's more about, oh, what can I do today in my 30s or 40s or 50s or 60s so I can reach the goal of not having to sit in the rocking chair unless you want to. And that's what it's all about. We get to choose, but you know, if we're unhealthy, we don't have all the options for us that we would if we were laying, you know, in a nursing home somewhere, taking care, you know, not being able to do anything for ourselves. So you start thinking about it as early as you can, you know, 20s, 30s. That's why I say, don't wait until you're my age, start now so you can start getting healthier, so you can have that longevity code. So the codes is all about breaking it all down so people can understand and how things that we've done. But one example is a nursing home study that was done about 10 years ago, I believe now. And it was crazy because they had 10 patients that were all bedridden, 90 years old and older. Those were the only requirements, 90 years old and older. And they had to be, you know, laying in a bed and not being able to get out. All they did for 6 weeks was just give them light hand weights, try to give them their legs moving, being able to sit up, just simple things that we all take for granted. By the end of this study, eight of these patients were able to go down to the lunchroom, whatever you want to call it, the dining hall, I guess it would be called, the dining hall, and they could sit and enjoy meals with their friends, which they weren't able to do before. They were stuck in bed. And living longer, healthier lives, social support is critical.
Absolutely.
And this study just shows that just simple things for bedridden 90-year-olds. And then one person couldn't walk to the dining hall. They had to get into a wheelchair. And then the other one just ended up still in, you know, being bedridden. But at least that person gave it a try. And so we all think that we can't do something, but I always like to talk about those people in their 90s. And that's kind of what the longevity coach is all about, is learning simple things, but also implementing them.
All right, talk about diabetes, tragedy to triumph.
That was my first book. And that
Okay.
was done from years of, I'd almost reached my 40th anniversary of my diagnosis. And so I really wanted to get that out because it was a celebration for me, but also because there's so many people right now struggling with prediabetes. I mean, it's epidemic proportion. 1 out of 3 Americans have diabetes and don't even know it. I mean, and it's a very challenging disease. So this is all basically talking about diabetes. But when I've spoken at heart associations, cancer places, things like that, my books were flying off the shelves. And when I'm selling them, I was like, what? And the first event planner that I spoke that was not associated with diabetes, she said, Traci, everything you're mentioning is the exact same thing to reduce Alzheimer's risk, to reduce cancer risk, to reduce heart disease risk. So that's basically what it is. I talk about it being diabetes because it's all about diabetes. But again, so much of it is about being healthy to avoid the things that we don't want.
Gotcha. Let me ask you this. Since 40 years, what is something simple you can give the listeners that they could take away on this episode that they could just do that doesn't require, and I'm not asking you to give medical advice, obviously, just something simple they could do to make a difference with their diabetes?
Oh, that is a great question. And it's really not difficult, but it can be challenging because all you need to do, and don't make changes all at once. Too many changes, as you well know, too many changes are going to sabotage you. You don't want that. But one little simple thing you could do today. So that's, for example, you have diabetes. Maybe you ate something you shouldn't eat, because nowadays they're telling people with diabetes, you can eat whatever you want, just take medication. And I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way. I want to keep my energy level. I'm not going to eat that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So swap something. I'm a firm believer. Our breakfast that we eat is horrific in this country and around the world, but what we eat in Western civilization is not healthy. So what I started doing in my mid 30s, I started eating salads and leftover protein for breakfast. I know some people are like, I'm not going to go to that extreme. Okay, fine. But find what works best for you. But stay away from those cereals and the milks and stuff like that that we had as kids. We don't need them as adults. And swap. I always say healthy swap. We're all about choices. There's two choices in everything in life. Do I eat this or do I eat this? Do I want a donut or a candy bar? Or do I want maybe an apple or even better, blueberries? Because with diabetes, and everybody needs to know this, but people, especially with diabetes, is high glycemic foods. And all that is foods that spike your blood sugar quickly. Like we were talking about donuts, we were talking about pizza, Italian food, things like that. And bananas are very healthy for us, but it can spike your blood sugar. But if you exchange a banana maybe for some blueberries or blackberries or raspberries, you're going to be shocked in just a few days how much better you start feeling. So my recommendation is always swap a food. There's something that you know intuitively that you probably shouldn't be eating. And if you're going to eat something unhealthy while you watch TV, don't take the whole sack of potato chips or whole sack of cookies.
I've been
Pick
doing it
out
all
one.
wrong, Tracy.
you,
You don't need a
pick
whole
out.
bag with the salsa. That's not what you're supposed to do.
No, exactly not. But what you want to do is, we all eat unhealthy sometimes, but just get a small portion, put it up and say, I don't want it anymore. Or then you take it to your plate and eat, at your in front of your TV or whatever you're doing. But what I even recommend is don't bring it into your house, because when you bring it into your house, you're going to be tempted. And if it is in your house, though, put it to the very back of either your refrigerator, freezer, or pantry. And what you want to do is put your healthier options up front. So just for the mouth right there. The second thing is, again, move. We got to move some. And what's come to find out is people with diabetes or pre-diabetes, well, actually everybody, but you're asking me about diabetes. What you want to do is after you eat a meal, go for a walk. Go for a walk. Walk, if it has to be a stroll in the park, that's fine. But typically what you want to start doing is walk as fast as you can, like you're late for a meeting, because that's going to really help things. But high intensity exercise, there's so much research, and all that is you slow down, you walk, run, whatever you want to do, jog at an easy pace for 3 to 5 minutes, then go all out for 30 to 45 seconds, slow down, then walk again or run again, or jog again. You want to get your heart rate back down. But high intensity exercise is amazing. But also, if you're not on diabetes medication, you could do intermittent fasting. And that's transformed so many people's lives that I've worked with. And all that is stop eating at about dinner time, 6 o'clock, whatever time that is for you. And then don't eat again until 11, 12 o'clock the next day. It really works so much, because our problem is with so many people with pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes, our bodies are going into overload, having to produce so much insulin because our insulin isn't working as well as it was because of all the junk we're putting in our face, is what I say. Junk in the face, no good.
Gotcha. So your last book, or I'm assuming this may be the middle book,
Mm-hmm.
Ride for Hope. This is when you were on the bike going across America.
Mm-hmm.
What is going through your mind while you're doing it? And were there any regrets, or were you like, if I do this, I'm letting so many people down? Or were you just like, I would just imagine like you're on a bike by yourself, it's solo. What is stopping you from going, all right, I went halfway across America. That's more than 99% of people in the country are going to do. I've done it. Like, what kept you going on a bike like that?
I'm a very determined person anyway. I've always been that way my entire life. I'm very type A personality. Yep, I'm going to admit it. On,
You have to be
on
to
your
do
show.
something like that.
But I did it. I started it off to celebrate it. Look at what I'm doing. I'm alive and I'm thriving. And then I started realizing that so many people I was meeting along the way needed hope, because I left getting on my bicycle and everybody kept saying, "Oh, the world's coming to an end. It was horrible. Everything's bad. Everything's bad." And then I got on, started riding my bicycle, and I met people from all over the country that would bring me water. I would stop on the side of the road, bring me something to eat. One gentleman who had his bicycle in his van with a bunch of his supplies, he stopped, not only fixed my flat tire, which was a blessing, but then he also gave me extra supplies, which I wouldn't have been able to succeed if I hadn't had those supplies, because there's a big where I went through in Wyoming. It's 76 miles until a rest stop. I mean, I think I saw like 2 towns the whole entire ride through Wyoming. But the biggest thing that impacted me the 3rd or 4th day of my ride, I got a message. I did a lot of social media because, again, I wanted to provide hope for people. And I got a message from a lady that her 6-year-old daughter had type 1 diabetes for 2 years. So she was 4 years old when she was diagnosed, and she had given up hope. She had no ambitions. She didn't want to even live because it's such a difficult disease. And her mom sent me a text and she said, "I just have to tell you this, that I took her out. We bought a map of the United States. She cut out your picture and she cut out a bicycle, and she's tracking you throughout your whole entire journey." And then I thought, you know what, Traci, if you don't do it for anything else, you do it for that little girl who's riding with you on the back of your bicycle. So I started meeting, because I did a lot of camps. I did a lot of hospital visits of people that were really suffering so much more than they should. And so I just wanted to provide hope. And so I mean, a lady in Nebraska, it was really hot throughout my whole entire ride. But the lady in Nebraska was stopping traffic. There was a lot of traffic construction on this route I was taking. And she said, "Okay." We started talking about what I was doing and everything. She said, "Okay, this is what I'm going to do." She gave me water. I was looking into her ice chest, and that was her last water. I said, "No, I've got plenty of water." She said, "No, you need this water more than I do." And I thought that was such a blessing. And then she said, "But wait, I'm going to stop the traffic behind you so you can get a head start." I mean, who does that kind of thing? And then, in Wyoming, in Nevada, when I'm climbing up these horrible hills in California, people are honking their horn and screaming, "You've got this, go, go, go." How can you not succeed when you have people on your team like that?
I love it. I love it. Love it. All right. On that note, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Fit Over 40 at Coach Clarence. All right. I am back with my guest, Traci Herbert. She's got a fascinating story. We just talked about how she rode across the country. I've done that, but in a car, so it's probably nothing to brag about. Let's talk a little bit about your journey in fitness. And you're a certified weight loss specialist. You are also a personal trainer and wellness coach. We all have a lot of those similar titles. What does coaching mean to you? And why do you coach people? We used to be, I'm old enough to know we were actually called personal trainers. Now everybody's a coach.
Yes.
They are something else. What drives you to want to help people?
That's what gets me up in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Is going back to having people realize, look, I can do this. I can do something I couldn't do 6 months ago or 6 weeks ago or 6 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I first became a personal trainer, certified personal trainer, because I wanted to learn everything I could on how to get the most out of my fitness routine.
Okay.
Always been an athlete, but I needed to do it so I could survive and thrive.
Mm-hmm.
But then the first time it ever really impacted me, and I've been a personal trainer now for 25 years, maybe. I think it's 25 years. Anyway, I met a lady that was struggling. She was a single mom, had no money, and she was devastated. And I was a single mom at one time. And so I started working with her, telling her, "Hey, I understand you don't have money. This is what you can do. Go to the track at the high school and walk around. And then, when you get to the curve part, just run or walk faster or something. And then do that while your kids have practice, because our kids run the same soccer team, and you don't have to have a gym. I said, I recommend you get a good pair of tennis shoes. And I said, I'm going to walk with you every day. And so I started really walking with her. She got healthier. She got faster. Then she went to run. So we started running together. And then I showed her simple things she could do at home with weights, milk jugs. You can put water or sand or anything you have in milk jugs. And then you can go buy it, garage sales and things, old weights that people aren't using. And she just had no clue where to start, but she also had no money. And so it became more of a mission to me to, yes, I obviously have to make a living, but I wanted to help as many people as I could, because those people are the backbones of their families. Because if our kids watching us be healthy, which my kids grew up watching me getting up in the morning before they went to school, doing calisthenics and everything, being a single mom, you're doing everything. But then what was so interesting is now both of my kids are doing half marathons, riding bikes, doing stair climbing as, for supporting different opportunities for helping people at risk. And it's like, that's what it's about. So your kids start watching you take control of your health. And then they're going to start seeing, oh, wait a minute. I remember them doing that. I need to do that. So it's all about, the best solution would be you have a brand new baby that you brought home from the hospital. 2 months later, 3 months later, your doctor says, okay, you could start exercising. Then you start doing those kind of things. But ideally, most people don't. So whenever their age are, I don't care if they're in high school, let them see you doing things to better yourself. And then eventually it'll start thinking, oh, okay, that's what I should be doing. So this is what coaching is all about to me. It's helping people. It's not rocket science, but just small steps equals huge changes.
Who's your ideal client?
My ideal client is somebody who doesn't think they can do it and who's exhausted and wanting to take control of their health. That's exactly what it is. And most people don't know that. So what I do is I typically have an in-depth conversation with somebody before I start working with them, because I set parameters and goals. And if they can't reach it, then I give them their money back. Very few people do that, but I do it. And I've never had to give any money back because I make sure. So I ask a lot of questions.
So I assume,
why?
Based on what you just said, you have an in-depth upfront conversation.
Correct.
Because guarantee, because there are people who will just quit on you and say, oh, I want my money back.
Yes. Or they'll quit on themselves, more importantly, because you don't want anybody quitting on themselves. And so it's always why do you want to do this? Okay, then why? So ultimately, a lot of times people want, well, I really want to get in a bathing suit because we're going on a cruise or we're going to the beach. Well, that's not my ideal client. My ideal client is somebody that says, you know what? I want to be able to play on the floor with my grandkids. I want to be able to go to the park and play catch with my teenage kids or something, things like that. That's my ideal client. But they got to watch their stinking thinking, because stinking thinking is contagious. Trust me, y'all. So stinking thinking, get that stinking thinking gone and start having more positive conversations. And we're not all positive all the time. There's times I'm very discouraged, but that's when I listen to some good podcasts like yours, or I go in and I read something, or I listen to a good TED Talk, because it's controlling our minds back to thinking what I can do versus what I can't do.
Absolutely. Here's a question for you. In the world today, what do you see the biggest roadblock to people achieving their goals?
Saying I can't do it. Or they said too big of goals. Those are the two things. I can't versus I can. Or, oh, I'm going to get into these jeans 6 months from now. And they had those jeans 6 years ago, something like that. Everything worthwhile takes time. And so many people think, well, I see all these commercials where I can take this quick fix and I can lose the weight or I can have more energy. And we've trained ourselves to believing that quick fixes are wonderful. I mean, I'm the world's worst. I stand in my microwave and I'm like, come on, and things like that. But it's slow and steady wins the race every single time. You try to achieve weight loss and you say, I'm going to lose 10 pounds in the next month. Not going to happen, probably. I mean, if it does, then you really need to rethink things, unless you're morbidly obese or something. But even then, it's learning the lifestyle, learning it's all about what you do, how you think, how you sleep, and start making small, minor changes. And then you're going to watch the world transform right in front of you as you're transforming.
So what I'm hearing is a lot of not so much, you haven't talked about exercise, you haven't talked about a certain type of diet. I'm hearing you say it's this mindset. It's really getting into routine. I've talked a lot about on my show because people say I'm not motivated. I struggle with motivation. And so what we teach is daily habits, that if you just get into those daily habits, you don't need motivation. If you know my daily habit is I'm going to try to get up to 10,000 steps, that has nothing to do with your motivation. That you set a goal to do those steps and the results just follow. I always tell people losing weight is a byproduct of just being healthy. That's the nice part. And I tell people as well, when you are over fat, I don't like to say overweight because weight is relative to each person.
I know, yes.
So when you're over fat, you're out of balance. And that goes back to what you said earlier. Your life is out of control, and there's a lot of other things, societal stuff, and, what is deemed acceptable and all this good stuff. So you're a grandmother. Talk about the family besides the fitness and you guys doing extreme things like climbing down the Grand Canyon. By the way, I'm in Arizona. So where do you live?
I live in Fort Worth, Texas.
Oh, you're in Texas. Okay. Texas is just about 10 hours from us. So, okay. So what's it like being a grandma? How do you find the balance in your life to still show up for your grandchildren?
Well, what's interesting is when, I was never even supposed to have children. And it was not easy back then because we didn't have even home blood testing machines. I mean, it was very challenging, but I had 2 healthy kids. They're obviously still healthy, but I realized when my oldest child was pregnant with our first grandchild, I thought, okay, Traci, what is your biggest challenge? And I thought, how am I going to get up and down and play on the floor? Just like the lady I was talking about. That's why my coaching program is so good for people who want to get up and down off the floor. Because I thought, I got to be that grandma. Yeah, I can ride my bike across the country. I can run marathons. I can do whatever. But I'm not flexible yet. See, always change your mindset. But I started that's when I got heavily into yoga. That's when I started getting up and down just off the floor. And so love my grandkids. Who doesn't? Obviously, I love my kids too. But what's so amazing to me is our grandkids. One of our grandsons said recently, well, we're going to go hang out with Papa and Mimi. This is what they call us. And our grandson said, well, if Mimi's involved, we're going to be active. And I thought, isn't that amazing that a preteen would say something like that? That just absolutely blew my mind. So again, it's not just the parents transforming their kids, but also we want to inspire our grandkids to do crazy things too. And I say crazy, they're not crazy, but for our age, people say we're crazy. And we're like, okay, we'll take that. So it's just so much fun. And they're all at different ages. We've got our youngest is 2.5 years old. So he's just a ball of fire right now. But all of our grandkids are very active in different kind of physical activity every day. And they love it. And they're all very healthy. And their parents are very cautious about what they eat. And they make sure they get movement and turn off that TV. Because unfortunately, so many kids today are being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, which used to be called adult onset, which is, again, different than what I had. Juvenile diabetes, have type 1. And it's because of all the inactivity. And when you have inactivity, just like kids, just like parents, just like adults, just like seniors, we start eating because we don't have the right mindset. We're just going to sit there. So many kids will just they stop at fast food. And then they go home and sit in front of the TV and watch TV or play video games. And that's not right. Of course, kids want to play video and watch TV, and that's fine. But they got to have some kind of, change in there on how much time they spend versus how much time they exercise. So one of our grandkids, they have a rule at their house that they have to have, if they have, I think it's like an hour of TV, they have to exercise. They don't call it exercise. You have to play outside for 2 hours. Perfect. That works. But it's a big challenge right now for all these kids. And, the younger they are, we're in a very unhealthy time right now in our world, especially in the United States, because of, you can't even go in and buy gas, or you go into, you don't have to go inside technically, but you walk in there and the junky, unhealthy food is right there when you go in and pay for it.
Well, you're in a convenience store, so it's quick, easy, fast. And they
Yep.
say if you want
And
to get
unhealthy.
valuable, you don't want it to be quick,
Hmm.
easy, and fast. Really
Yep.
quick, tell me about the longevity movement. I wanted to ask you about that.
The movement is all about helping people. I say baby boomers because I'm a baby boomer in our mid 60s, but it's actually younger, like 40, 50, 60 and on. It's a movement to change the way we view and the way we think of aging. And I'm not talking about how you think about your parents aging, how we think about aging. Do you look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself, I can't because look at the wrinkles around my face? Or are you going to go outside and go for a walk or go for a hike or go for a bike ride or go to a yoga class? So the movement is all about changing the attitude of people from, again, stinking thinking to having the right mindset to say, oh, wait a minute, I can do this. Like I said, I'm very competitive. But when you ask me how long it took us to get to the bottom of the Grand Canyon, and that's actually harder to get to the bottom, in my opinion, than climbing back out. But that's just my husband and I's view. But the thing is, though, if you think about it and you don't have the gumption to try it. And I'm like, oh, I used to be able to go faster. But you know what, Tracy? It doesn't matter. So the same thing about that's what the movement is all about. How to have an active life, how to live a healthier, happier, and active life. And despite age or diagnosis. And so many people get stuck on thinking, I'm old, I can't. And I'm always like, I'm young. I'm a young kid. I'm not obviously, but I don't think of myself as what my grandparents look like, as my great grandparents look like. That's what the
Right.
movement's all about. What you
Perfect.
can do now to take control of your health so you don't have to live in a rocking chair. So
Yeah,
it's a movement. It's just like a movement.
I love it. All right. So where can people find you if they want to find more information about you and the longevity movement and maybe get coaching from you?
Everything's on tracyherbert.com, and that's TracyHerbert.com. My parents didn't spell my name right, I don't think, but anyway. And I've got free resources because my hope is that there's something that you heard today or something you hear each week on these podcasts that makes you think, oh, wait a minute, I should try that. So I offer free resources because my goal is to help people learn that they can take control of their health. And then I do a podcast, a diabetes podcast, and also longevity codes podcast. And I have the books there. I've got a blog, but you can click on my website if you want to
And it
watch.
directs you to all of those things.
Yeah, it's got all the little things on there. But if you really want some motivation, go to the very bottom of my homepage of my website, and there's like a 3.5 minute clip of my bicycle ride across the United States.
All right.
That's pretty cool. I think it's pretty neat. Oh, I know it is because people tell me all the time. That's incredible.
That is, it's fascinating. Well, thanks for coming on and sharing your story. And I love these conversations,
Mm.
about inspiration and change. And really quick, with your diabetes, where is it at now in terms of how it's progressing or degressing, or where are you at with your diabetes? Is it just it's a manageable point? Is it always going to be something that's going to bother you?
I still take insulin, and again, I will for the rest of my life. But unless there's a cure, gotta think positive. But I have no complications that was guaranteed to happen to me, in my mid 30s because I was diagnosed at 17, and now I'm in my mid 60s and I have no complications. If you were to look at my blood sugar, your blood test that you get from your doctor's office, if you would look at that, you would not think I have diabetes because my blood sugars are all in range or at the pre-diabetic level. So it's very, 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 I'm very tightly controlled. I take very good care of myself. I do have technology, and that's made a huge difference. But everything that I was told at 17 years old, thank goodness, not one of them have come into existence. But I do believe that because of my research and because of practicing it on myself, I always tell everybody I'm a guinea pig. I don't do anything or recommend anything unless I try it myself. And because of that, I really think that's why I've lived so healthy. Has it been easy? No, it's still challenging, but that's what it's like with a chronic disease. But it
Sure.
doesn't control me, I control it.
I
That's
love
the way
it.
I tell myself. Because
I
again,
love
you got to have the right mindset. You can tell my psychology background, can't you?
Yes, mindset is everything. I say that all the time. All
Mhm.
right, Tracy, thank you so much. And everybody, we'll see you next time. Fit Over 40, I'm Coach Clarence.
Mhm.
Hey, thanks for watching the video. If you like videos like these and you want more information, please hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, good for the algorithm, keeps us relevant, keeps us in your inbox anytime a new video drops. We'll see you next time.